everyone. Welcome to Be the Change with Tiffany Leiws on Clearsource Radio. It is Tuesday, July 18th. I hope everyone's having a wonderful evening. And I have a very special guest with us this evening. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. What is your name?
I'm Madison Speer.
Madison Speer.
I am a 3L at the University of Massachusetts School of Law.
You're, a what?
A 3L, so I'm in my third and last year.
Yay! That's awesome. Madison School of Law. Okay. Good. So tell me about yourself.
So I grew up in Texas, about 30 minutes east of Houston, in a really small town.
Yes.
And then went to college at the University of Texas at Arlington.
Nice.
There I majored in political science.
Okay.
So I really developed a love of, politics and law and social issues and social policy. So that's kind of what I think we're going to be talking about today.
Sure. Okay.
So with what's been going on recently, I know everyone knows that this presidency has been kind of crazy, to say the least, and very atypical.
Okay.
And with the upcoming health care proposal that this executive is rolling out, I thought that it would be a good time to talk about some of the health issues, specifically relating to women and how states have been reacting in recent years.
I agree. That definitely is something that we need to talk about and that the world needs to hear about. So why don't you tell me what the bill is or what the proposition is, when it comes into effect, and how that's going to affect us.
So right now it's still kind of up in the air.
Okay.
The acronym for it is the AHCA, I think it's American Health Care Act. It's how they're wanting to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, or the ACA, or as most people like to call it, Obamacare.
Okay.
And it passed the House, but it didn't pass the next requirement, and so they sent it back to be redrafted, because a lot of the real meat of the bill seems to have been really rushed.
Right.
And like they were just trying to get something out there, because that was one of the main campaign promises, was that, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare within the first, I think she said, 100 days. Well, that's
wow.
deadline time for a lot of things. But yeah, it really seemed to me that they were being hasty and rushing it. And I think the legislature saw that too, and so that's why they sent it back for redrafting.
Okay.
But some of the major things that affect women are, first of all, there is a provision to completely defund Planned Parenthood. And I know Planned Parenthood can be like a trigger term for a lot of people.
Okay.
Growing up in Texas, I grew up in a very conservative family and conservative community. And so I know that a lot of people associate the term Planned Parenthood with abortion.
Right.
And I want to say from the get-go that, I am truly pro-choice. And I feel like a lot of people have a link between pro-choice and being pro-abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And that cannot be further from the truth. I personally believe that on that specific issue, it's every woman's personal choice. Like, everybody has different situations in their life and health factors and so many things that factor into that decision that I don't think there's any way possible that you could legislate a one-size-fits-all type of mandate regarding that. And so
Agreed.
that's why I feel the way that I do about it and not, outright, ban everything.
Right.
But, that being said, the major issue with defunding Planned Parenthood is that they provide so much more than abortion services. Like, abortion services make up a very minimal percentage of what they actually do.
Right.
They provide a lot of low-income women and men with STD screenings, cancer screenings, general wellness visits for women who have to have annual gynecological visits, and, you know, just basically basic health care for women.
Right.
And specifically for low-income women, which,
right.
you know, that's really affecting the majority of the United States right now is the economic climate.
Right.
And so another aspect to that this proposal instigates is that they're also wanting to try to severely cut back Medicaid.
Yeah, I heard about this one.
Yeah, which a lot of low-income families rely on for health coverage.
And elderly as well. Right.
Yeah. And so those two things coupled together really, really restrict women's access to basic health care needs because the majority of Planned Parenthood customers use Medicaid.
Right.
And so that's one of the major issues that affects women with this bill. Also, the bill, the way it's written, it states that people can't be denied coverage for pre-existing conditions.
Right.
And while that sounds great, there's also an amendment called the MacArthur Amendment that was added that allows states to waive out of that provision and basically establish their own list of essential health benefits that they have to cover.
Okay.
Whereas under the ACA, the one that we have now, the federal government gave a list of essential health benefits that have to be covered.
Right.
And under that was birth control, FDA approved birth control, and maternity coverage.
Right.
And also, you know, having children at a hospital costs a lot of money, and so a lot of that was covered under the ACA as well.
Right.
And under this new proposal, states can waive out of the federal mandated list of essential health benefits and basically pick and choose and say, you know, these are what we're going to allow coverage for, and these are what we're going to allow you to opt out of covering.
Right.
So that's still big for a lot of people, especially women who've had C-sections.
Right.
Because that's the essential benefits that were covered that could be opted out of now.
Okay.
You could potentially be denied health coverage because you had a C-section.
Wow.
It's to do so.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's a lot of things are just really up in the air the way that it's affected now.
And that's that hashtag, right?
Right.
I am a pre-existing condition, right? That's what that's about?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what that's about.
Okay.
And so it just really puts a lot of things up in the air and at risk especially for women, because women have a lot more, you know, requirements health-wise than men do because our bodies do a lot more than men do.
Right.
And so that's kind of why I hate the term, like, air quotes, women's issues, because, you know, women's issues are human issues, you know?
Yeah.
First of all, we're half the world. And so these health concerns that are facing half the world, you would, if it were any other, like, half the world, not just that, like, divided by gender,
right,
you wouldn't call that a certain type of issue. You'd say that's a human issue.
Right.
And so, not only that, but, like, annual appointments. So women of a certain age and older have to get annual gynecological visits.
Right. Okay.
So, because of the way women's bodies are structured, we have to go to a specific doctor for that.
Agreed, yeah.
Well, men, on the other hand, they can have their annual prostate exam at their annual physical.
Yes.
By their regular doctor.
Wow.
And so, just because of that, I feel like women shouldn't be penalized because our bodies work in a separate way that requires an additional doctor's visit. Whereas men don't have to go through all of that too. So I feel like we should be given the same coverage option because it's not really our fault that our bodies do so many different things. You know?
And we didn't choose to be born male or female on top of that.
Right. Yeah. And just a side note, there would be know people without women. So.
Yep, I'm gonna give you that one.
But anyway, so being from Texas, I've done a lot of research on some of the restrictions to abortion and women's health care that our state has rolled out.
Okay.
And one of the most prolific and influential ones was it culminated in the Supreme Court case of Whole Women's Health v. Hellerstedt.
Mm-hmm.
And it started out as a bill in the Texas Senate.
Right.
Which contained provisions including banning abortion procedures at 20 weeks post-fertilization.
Okay.
It required abortion-inducing drugs, aka like abortion pills,
Right.
be used according to FDA regulations, which require that women visit the doctor in person for each of the 2 doses of the abortion pill, resulting in 2 separate doctor's visits.
Right.
And thereafter must be followed up with an appointment 14 days after that, bringing the total of pill-related appointments to 3, on top of the 2 that you have to have before you even get the pill, when you have to go in for counseling and an ultrasound.
Right.
So that's 5 appointments just to take a pill.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me was crazy in and of itself. I mean, it's essentially a prescription medication. You know, for anything else that you get prescribed from a doctor, you don't have to go to a doctor's office and physically take it in front of them.
Right.
Know?
Well, not most, but some, yeah.
That was a little nuts to me. But the other issue, like the other main issue with this proposal was that it introduced these ambulatory and surgical center requirements, which
right.
on their face sound great. Like, let's make it safer. But when it comes down to it, even regular abortion procedures or like any other outpatient procedure,
right,
don't need to be done in a hospital. It would be the same as
it's a precaution, though.
Right, like so just like going in for some routine thing at a dermatologist. You don't have to go to a hospital for that.
Right.
And so so part of that provision was that the abortion clinics providing abortion had to have active admitting privileges to a hospital located not further than 30 miles from the location at which the
procedure was going to be done. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so on Tuesday, June 25th of 2013, Senator Wendy Davis, a Fort Worth Democrat, took the Senate floor and started what she hoped would be a 13-hour filibuster of this bill.
Right.
And she almost made it, but, as I'm sure you know, women in a very primarily male-dominated field have a hard time getting things done sometimes.
Right.
And a few of the male senators, I don't know if you're familiar with how the filibuster rules work.
Right.
You're allowed 3 reprimands before you have to leave the floor.
Okay.
And so what you have to do in a filibuster is you can't sit down or lean on a desk. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't, leave at all. And so she received a warning for asking for help to put on a back brace after she's been standing there for over 5 hours.
Okay.
And then she received another reprimand for, I believe it was something else similar to that. And then her third, just a few hours shy of the deadline, Senator Dewhurst issued her third warning, upholding an objection from another senator that her discussion of the fetal sonogram law was not germane to this bill.
Okay.
It's another provision. But anyway, long story short is that they tried to say that she didn't actually make it the whole 13 hours.
Okay.
Come to find out, when they go back and look at the roll call, they didn't start their roll call until 12:02 p.m., which technically meant that she fulfilled her requirement. But nonetheless, they tried to say she didn't get it done.
Okay.
So, Governor Perry at the time immediately called for a second special session, during which the rebranded version of this bill, now known as House Bill 2, would be considered and voted on. It was essentially identical to the one before. And it got put through.
Right.
So the impact of this passing was that prior to the attempted enactment, there were 36 abortion-providing clinics in the state of Texas.
Okay.
After this became state law in 2003, 14 of those were immediately forced to close.
Wow.
By the time the Supreme Court case was resolved, keep in mind, Texas is the largest state in America with a population of 5.4 million women of reproductive age.
Right.
There were merely 10 abortion providers open at all.
Right, and this was a few years ago. I remember when that happened.
Yeah, and the entire Rio Grande Valley had none.
Right.
And so women were having to travel hundreds of miles just to get these services.
Right.
And so not only that, so they were forced to drive on average 85 miles,
Mm-hmm.
which is more than double the national average for a trip of 30
Right.
miles. And so not only that, but because they were so far apart and the restrictions in place regarding the waiting period,
Yeah.
they not only had to pay for travel expenses, but also, to stay at a hotel or somewhere overnight.
Right.
Because they had to go back the next day for the next part of it. So
Right.
so it was argued that this was an undue burden. And the Supreme Court found that, yeah, it was. Despite the attempted arguments that, this is for health concerns and it's trying to make these abortion procedures safer,
Mm-hmm.
they said that it was a thinly veiled attempt to limit access to abortion, that in reality, what they were trying to do wasn't happening. It didn't have any effect on the safety of these procedures at all. It
Right.
was just them it was medically unnecessary to
Right.
impose those burdens. And so that was overturned by the Supreme Court. Now, our current governor, Doug Abbott, has put into place laws that now require funereal services for excised tissue after an abortion.
Okay.
So that means you have to bury or cremate
Right.
the excised
Yeah.
medical waste.
Right.
And, just on its face, that seems kind of sketchy because there's already medical waste facilities and procedures that are put in place for, public safety and health reasons to dispose of that.
Okay.
But not only that, a lot of cultures don't necessarily believe in funerals.
Okay.
And so
And
that really has religious freedom aspects to it as well.
okay. I'm gonna have to switch you up a little bit because this is a G-rated program.
Okay.
So let's kind of get away from that a little bit and talk about some other things, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, one of the other laws that he put into place allows doctors to keep information from parents regarding
Minors. Yeah.
the fetus.
Okay.
So, if they think that parents would choose to abort due to a child having a certain disease or mental illness, they don't have to tell you that your child has that condition.
Wow.
And then you can't sue them for it after the fact. That to me is the most egregious because it's keeping medical information that's necessary to the parent from them.
Right.
In order to make a fully informed decision.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that was the basis of Roe v. Wade and Casey, was that people need all of the information necessary to make an informed choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that is completely taken that away. There's no way that you can make an informed choice if your child has some debilitating disease and you aren't told it before they're born.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. And we're back.
So, anyhow, these laws that target clinics to provide abortion services, even though they're targeted just at that one service, really inhibit women from access to all health care relating to their reproduction and, just general women's health, because it shuts down so many of these providers.
Right.
And so those laws that are made of that nature are now what are known as TRAP laws, T-R-A-P.
Wow. Okay.
And that's called, it stands for Targeted Restrictive Abortion Procedures.
Okay.
And so what those are basically the same thing as what happened in Texas and Whole Women's Health.
Mm-hmm.
They were just thinly veiled, attempts to shut down any and all clinics that provide those services.
Okay.
And lots of states have followed in their footsteps. So just off the top of my head, I know that now in Michigan, 83% of the counties are without clinics that provide those services. Missouri, 96% of their counties are without. Oklahoma as well.
Okay.
And then Mississippi, 99% of their counties are without clinics that provide those services.
Which is crazy because we're not just talking about abortion. We're talking about women's health care, reproductive. Right. We're just talking about, things that women have to go to the doctor all the time for, and that's crazy.
Right. It's insane because
that was attached to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially like in Texas currently still, even though that was struck down by the Supreme Court, 93% of our counties are without access to those types of clinics. 93% of our counties are without that. That's astounding to me because
that
is huge.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, there's 5.4 million women of reproductive age in our state.
Right.
5.4 million. That's just women of reproductive age. And for 93% of our counties to not have access to those types of services is ridiculous.
That is insane.
It really is.
Where are they supposed to turn? Where they're going to go to their general provider? Mm-hmm. And that's not good. They're not specialized in these things typically.
And that works for men because, like I said, they can get those things done at their annual physical.
Right.
But women's reproductive systems are more complex, and so that requires specialists. Right.
So it deleted a lot of jobs, but it's going to sound like it's going to create a lot more opportunities for people to get into healthcare and become specialists and find ways around that law, I would think.
I really hope so. It just depends on how the laws are drafted.
Okay.
Because a lot, like in Mississippi, for instance, where 99% of their counties are without those services, mm-hmm. the way the law drafted is so restricted that there's really no way mm-hmm. for more to be developed.
I'm sure they'll find a way around it like they do everything else. They'll just label it differently. Or they will have to find a way. You can't just take away women's services. You just can't take that away,
I mean, well, that's what you think. That's what any rational thinking person would think, but it's been this way for decades.
Wow. That's... Wow. That blows my mind.
Yeah, I know, right? It's been this way for decades because very conservative lawmakers don't want to budge on these issues. And so, one of the major issues they don't want to budge on even is, contraceptives or birth control.
Right.
And that, to me, it is crazy because they would rather their states have, abstinence-only sex education.
Yeah, and I've got an argument on this one too. There's actually a movie about this. It's called The Pact, and it's where they refuse to hand out contraceptives to teenagers. And a bunch of teenage girls, have you seen this movie? A bunch of teenage girls created a pact to all get pregnant and have babies at the same time. They're 13, 14 years old, all because the schools refused to have sex education classes and hand out contraceptives. They'd rather issue pregnancy tests. And I feel kind of strongly about that issue too. That one doesn't make any sense why they would want to not intervene in a prevention way.
Right. Especially in states like Mississippi that have some of the highest STD rates in the nation.
Right.
They are still so adamant on preaching their abstinence-only sex education classes.
That doesn't work, though.
If you want to teach that, but you have to still provide access to, birth control as well. Not only for birth control purposes, but also for STD prevention.
Exactly. And it's kind of normal for a teenage girl to be on birth control. It helps regulate their body at that age.
Right. Anyway, like even not for birth control purposes. Like I got on it personally when I was 12 years old because I had severe
hormonal issues. Right.
It helps regulate it helps regulate so many things more than that. Like
I know.
A lot of people don't realize is that it has so many health benefits other than just preventing pregnancy. And what the issue is, a lot of these lawmakers are, older.
Yeah, I know. I know about that. And
so it seems crazy to me that men get to make decisions about women's health care when they really don't know anything about it.
Right. I agree.
And so, I don't know, that was kind of astounding to me that this many states have had 80 to 99% of their counties without access to these clinics for decades now.
That's insane. That really is. And, I mean, who's going to provide solutions for that is the question.
The voters.
Okay.
That's really the only way that we can provide solutions to that is voting in people that will think more progressively on this and try and change the laws.
Okay.
Because we keep voting in the same sort of people with the same ideologies, it's just going to keep perpetuating the cycle.
Agreed. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It really does. But
because if you look at the track record over since I believe the 70s, it's been the same thing over and over again, like the same rhetoric and ideology over and over about birth control is evil, all that sort of stuff. And so let's not try and educate and provide services for that. Instead, let's preach abstinence only and hope for the best. Well,
yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah.
You think after this many years they'd realize that maybe that's not the best idea.
I mean, you would think you would, but it's going to take one of their own teenage children getting pregnant for them to open up their eyes.
Yeah, and in Colorado, I believe I can't remember how many years ago it was, but they allowed free IUDs.
Mm-hmm.
And the teen pregnancy rate in their state was cut in half within the first year and was down by 70% by the second.
That's amazing. Oh, and let's talk about the health, the care that they have to provide for these teenagers in these schools that want to talk about abstinence. Now they have to open up daycare centers in the schools so the children can still go to school.
Right.
Isn't that insane?
It is. It really is. Like, that blows my mind. First of all, how are you going to put a kid in a position to where they don't have the education or availability to, contraceptives to where they might make a mistake and be forced to have a child while they're still a kid.
And drop out of school and everything. Right.
Right. Having a child completely changes your life.
Right.
Not saying it's for the worse or for the better, but it completely changes your life.
Right.
I mean, you're having a kid. And so that's a decision that everyone should have all of the education and all of the access to full support for.
I agree. Everybody needs to be more informed. I really do.
And it all starts with our state legislatures, because it starts at home, and it starts with the sex education that the children are receiving, and it starts with
our
access
schools.
to contraception.
Right.
Yeah, and access to, just like health information in general.
Okay.
And, that goes back to the voters. Like I said earlier, you have to vote in people who are on the same page with that and not just stuck in this abstinence-only rhetoric.
Okay,
Because
so is this going to be, since you're in law school, how hard are you going to fight for this issue? Are you going to fight in Texas? Are you going to fight, I'm sure that's got to do with, you sound so passionate about it. I'm sure this has got something to do with where your career is going to take you, being a law student.
Yeah, so my end goal is to ultimately, I want to be a judge.
Okay, good.
But, it takes a while to get there. So I have to start in some sort of litigation and work my way up. But yeah, this is something that I am very passionate about. Even in undergrad, I was on our university's moot court team, and this was the issue for that. And so,
very cool.
So from like the get-go in my higher education, like this has always been in the forefront for me.
Okay.
I actually worked on Wendy Davis's gubernatorial campaign for that reason.
Wow.
But, so, yeah, I really want to get back to Texas and try to start my battle on that front first and foremost.
Right.
Because now Texas has some of the most restrictive and the most egregious women's health laws right now.
Right.
And so I'm going to do anything and everything that I can in that matter. I love constitutional law, and that's what a lot of this is. Right. Because it goes back to the rulings from the Supreme Court from Roe v. Wade and Casey.
Right.
And so, I don't know if I'm going to work with the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, but that's definitely an option. I potentially want to get into public policy and help draft some of these laws if I am able to have that opportunity. But yeah, definitely, like something has to change because the percentages of counties without access to these clinics is insane.
Right. I know. That's crazy. Well, I hope that you are able to utilize your law degree and help make changes for women to end teen pregnancy, or at least reduce it. Like, I really hope that that's something that you put forth a lot of effort, because that's a big deal.
It really is. It's a huge deal. And it's something that's 100% preventable.
I agree.
And it's insane that it's such an issue that it is.
I know. I agree. Anything preventable should be prevented, or at least tried to be prevented. You know?
The main issue with that is that people don't want to divert funds for that.
Oh, I know. So it always comes down to money. I know.
It all comes back to money.
Yeah.
But if anything, we can learn from Colorado and see that, even though they diverted the funds for that initially, it's helped. In the long run, it's reduced funds being expended because it cuts down on teen pregnancy.
Right, by half.
Pregnancies in general are pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's like, 5-10 years ago, it was $20,000 a year to raise a child, and I'm sure that's quadrupled by this point in life.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So.
And not only that, people who are impoverished to have a child at a hospital, they're relying on public assistance.
And now we're taking that public assistance away, right?
Right. And not only that, but, like, if you cut down on teen pregnancy, I know a lot of young mothers are in that wage bracket.
Right.
And so that would also reduce the funds going into that taxpayers would have to pay, because it would reduce the amount of young mothers having children.
I agree.
And so people need to think about it from a more 30,000-foot view, rather than in what's right in front of their nose.
Right. And they need to add it up and see which one makes more sense financially.
Right. And because, like, I mean, my parents, for instance, with the Healthcare Act, they are very, you know, they almost have blinders on, because the ACA, Obamacare, they really took a hit on their finances because of it, because they were in a small percentage of the country who own their own business. And
right. Right.
I had to explain to them, I said, you know, I know that it seems tough right now and that this really isn't fair to you, but you have to have perspective and think about it in terms that for the first time in your 50-something years of life, this is the first time that a piece of legislation hasn't directly helped you or promoted you.
Right.
And that's pretty amazing that you've been that fortunate that this is the first time that it hasn't directly helped you in some way. And I was like, you also have to keep in mind that this was drafted for the majority of Americans.
Right.
Those people who get insurance through their job.
Right.
And that's, like I said, that's the majority of the country. And so for those people, it really does help. And so I know it stinks for them right now. And I was like, y'all can, that was one of their primary reasons for voting the way that they did. But that was just an example of, like, only seeing, like, what's in front of you. And in terms of sexual education and healthcare and birth control aspects of it, people need to take a step back from it, from their local, like, funds, and see, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, I know I don't want to have to pay higher taxes to fund this initially, but
right, long term.
If you look at the projections, it'll pay off in the long run.
Right.
You'll be paying less taxes to the public assistance needed for those young mothers to have the children in the first place.
But that's in a perfect world. When it comes to taxes, that's in a perfect world. You know.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
But there's always something that you're going to have to pay taxes on.
Right.
But in that specific regard, Colorado is a perfect example that that does work.
Right. I agree with you. I like what Colorado did, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and I hope that more states will follow their lead and will learn from it. Another suggestion would be to open up free women's services clinics that didn't provide termination services, but still provided the other benefits.
Yeah, and that is one option, and that's how a lot of states have combated that.
Right.
But there are still some, like a good bit of states that have provisions that say if you provide like Plan B or the morning after pill or any sort of form of contraception, that they can't operate either.
Wow.
Yeah. That's in places
crazy.
like Mississippi and I think Missouri as well. But just off the top of my head.
Wow.
But, yeah.
Okay. Well, that was a very honest and powerful perspective, and I appreciate you sharing that with the world. Is there anything else that you would like to get your message out about? Anything else you'd like to say?
Not really. Just everyone needs to be an informed voter.
Okay.
And everyone needs to vote, first and foremost. I was actually a deputy registrar for Tarrant County in college, and that means that I would go around asking people to register to vote.
Right.
And there's a lot of misconception that if when you register to vote, that signs you up for jury duty. And that's not true.
It's
That's
not true.
at all.
Right.
If you have a driver's license, you're eligible for jury duty. So,
Exactly. Yes.
I just wanted people to know that, but
Good. Thank you.
Vote. Like if you're at all concerned about anything in your community, you have to vote. Even like if it's just at the local level, at your city council level, like you need to vote, and you need to be informed about it too. Like
Right.
There's websites out there that you can literally search and compare different candidates for every level of election and see what their viewpoints on certain issues are, see how they voted on issues in the past. You know, if something's important to you, you need to vote, and you need to get out there and make sure that you're voting for someone who's going to advance what you want to happen.
Okay, so how do they research a specific senator, congressman, or see where these habits are coming from, how they have acted in the past? Where can people who don't know any better research this information so they can be a more educated at their decision when they go to vote?
Google.
Okay.
I know it sounds funny, but really.
In each state, though, right? Or each county, each state?
Yeah, I mean, you just go on to Google, and like I did this for my last election, because I voted by absentee ballot, because I'm in Massachusetts right now. So, when I was voting for some of the county seats, I didn't know anything about the people that were up to those seats. So I just Googled, their names and like their policies. So like, for instance, say someone's name was like Jack Smith.
Okay.
And so I Googled like Jack Smith, XYZ County.
Right.
Policy stance on this thing.
Okay.
And it pulled up lots of websites. I can't remember the one that I used off the top of my head.
But that's okay. That's a good starting point for people who don't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're hearing you,
that's
but
what I did.
Yeah.
And it really helped because I had no clue who some of these people even were.
Okay.
And so it really helped because I've never voted a straight ticket in my life, but I also don't like not voting in every category on a ballot.
Right.
Because I think if you're going to vote, you might as well vote for everything.
Right.
And so that's why I went and researched that. But yeah, it's a lot easier than it seems. You just have to, try.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information, and I hope that helps a lot of people. If there's anything I can do to help your cause, let me know. Maybe we can come up with some creative ways to find ways around this, because women's health care is important, and that's not fair to just take it all away based off of one thing. And there needs to be some serious and immediate solutions to that. So I'm all over a good cause, and I'd be willing to help in any way. And
well, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I've really appreciated this interview, and I hope you have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.